The massive space station hung in the darkness like a glowing city made of crystal and metal. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many arms, each one more beautiful and strange than the last. Some looked like flowing water frozen. In time, others resembled giant insects with wings that sparkled in the starlight. The station itself was bigger than most moons, spinning slowly around the bright orange star called Zentara. Inside the main council chamber, beings from across the galaxy gathered around a circular table that floated in the center of the room. The air hummed with different languages, some spoken through mouths, others through clicking sounds or musical tones that seemed to come from nowhere. Ambassador Veltar of the Velthari race stood at the speaking platform, his body made of what looked like living crystal that caught and reflected the room's soft blue light. When he spoke, his words came out as beautiful musical notes that the translation devices turned into speech everyone could understand. "The next item on our agenda," Veltar announced, his crystal form shifting slightly as he moved, "is the membership. Application from species designation 7834E. They call themselves humans. From the third planet of a small yellow star they named Sol." A wave of soft sounds rippled through the chamber. Some delegates clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their species. Others made gentle humming noises that meant the same thing. Commander Zekth of the Krex shifted his 6 legs under the table, his insect-like head tilting to one side. His voice came through mechanical speakers built into his throat. "The primitives? From the outer rim? Surely this is some kind of mistake." "I'm afraid not," Veltar replied, holding up a thin device that projected images into the air above the table. "They have submitted a formal request to join our council, along with examples of their technology and cultural achievements." The first image showed a small blue and green planet covered in swirling white clouds. It looked peaceful and pretty, but nothing special compared to the home worlds of the council members. The next images showed human cities with their simple buildings of glass and steel, nowhere near as elegant as the flowing biocities of the Nomari or the crystal spires of the Velthari. "Look at their transportation methods," Commander Zekth buzzed, his mechanical voice filled with amusement. "They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Chemical rockets. My hatchlings build better toys than that." More laughter filled the chamber. Even the normally polite Nomari delegates floating in their transparent biosuits filled with glowing liquid seemed to shake their heads in disbelief. Ambassador Talara of the Nomari spoke next, her voice soft and flowing, like water. "While we appreciate all life forms and their potential for growth, surely the humans are not ready for membership in our council. They have barely achieved fusion power, and their fastest ships would take hundreds of their years to reach even the nearest council world." Veltar nodded, his crystal body flashing brighter for a moment. "The evaluation committee has reviewed their application thoroughly. Their mathematics are adequate. Their science shows promise, but they are still centuries behind even our most basic technologies. They have no faster-than-light travel, no quantum displacement drives, no dimensional phase technology." "Do they even have gravity manipulation?" asked another delegate, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. "No," Veltar replied. "They achieve flight by pushing hot gases out of metal tubes. It's actually quite quaint." The word quaint sent another wave of gentle amusement through the chamber. To these beings whose civilizations had conquered space travel thousands of years ago, human technology seemed like something from the distant past. Commander Zeketh pulled up his own display, showing images of sleek Krex vessels that could fold, space around themselves and appear instantly at distant stars. "Our quantum displacement drives have been standard technology for over 3,000 years. Before that, even our most primitive ancestors had mastered gravity control. How can beings who still burn chemicals in metal tubes expect to join a council of advanced civilizations? Perhaps in a few hundred years," suggested Talara diplomatically, "when they have had time to develop more sophisticated technologies. We should encourage their growth, but membership in the Galactic Council requires a certain level of advancement." Veltar began preparing the formal response. "The decision is clear then. We will send the standard rejection notice, along with encouragement to continue their development. We can review their application again in Shall we say 500 standard cycles? That seems generous, buzzed Commander Zeketh. At their current rate of progress, they might achieve basic gravity manipulation by then. Maybe. The vote was quick and unanimous. Every delegate agreed that while humans showed potential, they were simply too primitive to join the galactic community. Their rejection letter would be polite, but firm. Light years away on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office at Terran Space Command headquarters, built into the mountains of Colorado. Outside his window, he could see the launch pads where humanity's most advanced rockets waited for their next missions to the Moon and Mars. They were beautiful machines, tall and white against the blue sky, but Jake knew that compared to what other civilizations might have, they were probably nothing special. The communication device on his desk beeped, indicating an incoming message from deep space. Jake had been expecting this for weeks now. Earth's application to join something called the Galactic Council had been sent out 2 months ago, along with examples of human art, science, and technology. It had taken the signal weeks to reach whoever was supposed to receive it. Jake opened the message and began to read. The words were translated from some alien language, but their meaning was crystal clear. Species 7834E, human. Application for Galactic Council membership denied. Technological development insufficient. Reapply in 500 standard cycles. 500 cycles. Jake did the math quickly in his head. That was about 600 Earth years, assuming their cycles were similar to Earth years. The door to his office opened and Lieutenant Commander Kate Sullivan walked in, carrying a cup of coffee and some technical reports. Kate had been his friend since their academy days, and she was one of the best engineers he'd ever worked with. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her blue eyes were bright with curiosity. "So?" she asked, setting her coffee down on his desk. "What did our galactic neighbors have to say?" Jake handed her the message without saying a word. Kate read it quickly, her expression changing from hope to disappointment to something that looked like anger. "Technological development insufficient," she read out loud. "Well, that's wonderfully specific. What exactly do they think we're missing?" "Everything, apparently," Jake replied, leaning back in his chair. "Chemical rockets? They probably think we're still in the Stone Age." Kate sat down across from him, her engineer's mind already working on the problem. "You know what bothers me most about this? They didn't even give us a chance to show what we can really do. They just looked at our current technology and decided we're not worth their time." Jake nodded, looking out the window at the rockets on the launch pads. Somewhere up there, past the stars he could see, were civilizations with technology so advanced that Earth's best efforts seemed like children's toys to them. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Maybe we really are too primitive." Kate shook her head firmly. "Or maybe they're so busy being advanced that they've forgotten what it's like to think of new solutions to old problems." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the same rockets Jake had been watching. "You know what I think, Jake? I think they're going to regret dismissing us so quickly." 3 months had passed since the rejection letter arrived, and the sting of being dismissed by the galaxy still hurt. Jake Morrison had thrown himself into his work, reviewing mission reports and planning new expeditions to Mars. But every time he looked up at the stars, he remembered those alien words: technological development insufficient. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Jake was reviewing supply requests for the lunar base when his office door burst open. Dr. Ryan Carter practically ran into the room, his usually neat brown hair sticking up in all directions and his lab coat wrinkled like he had slept in it. "Jake," Ryan gasped, trying to catch his breath. "You need to come to the lab right now." Jake looked up from his papers, surprised by the excitement in his friend's voice. Ryan was normally the calm, quiet type who spoke in careful, measured sentences. Today he looked like a kid who had just discovered something amazing. "What's going on, Ryan?" Jake asked, standing up from his desk. "I can't explain it here," Ryan said, practically bouncing on his feet. "You have to see it for yourself. Bring Kate too. This is going to change everything." Jake called Kate on his communicator, and 15 minutes later they were all walking quickly through the underground tunnels that connected the various research facilities built into the Colorado mountains. Ryan led them deeper than Jake had ever been before, past security checkpoints and through corridors marked with warnings about experimental technology. "Ryan, you're making me nervous," Kate said as they walked. Her engineering mind was clearly trying to figure out what could be so important. "What exactly have you been working on down here?" "Something that started as a mistake," Ryan replied, stopping in front of a heavy metal door marked Project Deep Space. He placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The laboratory beyond was bigger than Jake had expected, filled with strange equipment he didn't recognize. Computer screens showed complex mathematical formulas, and in the center of the room sat something that looked like a metal ring about 6 feet across, surrounded by thick cables and blinking lights. 2 other people were in the lab. Lisa Parker, a young engineer with short red hair, was typing furiously at a computer terminal. Alex Turner, a quantum physicist with thick glasses, was adjusting something on the metal ring with careful precision. "Show them," Ryan said to his team. Lisa looked up from her computer and grinned. "Watch this," she said, picking up a small metal ball from a nearby table. She tossed it gently toward the metal ring. The ball disappeared. Jake blinked hard, thinking his eyes had played a trick on him. "Where did it go?" "That's the amazing part," Alex said, his voice filled with excitement. "It went into what we're calling null space. It's not here anymore, but it's not really gone either." "Null space?" Kate asked, her engineer's curiosity clearly piqued. Ryan walked over to a whiteboard covered in equations and diagrams. "We were trying to create a better fusion reactor, something more efficient than what we currently have. We thought if we could create a small gravitational field using controlled fusion energy, we might be able to contain the reaction better." He pointed to a diagram that showed space bent into strange shapes. But something unexpected happened. Instead of just bending space, we accidentally tore a small hole in it. The hole leads to a place that exists between normal space and time. "Between space and time?" Jake repeated, trying to understand. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "Think of normal space like a piece of paper. Most technology, even the alien stuff, works by folding the paper or poking holes through it. But we found a way to slip underneath the paper entirely, into a place where the normal rules don't apply." Alex activated a control panel, and the metal ring began to glow with a soft blue light. "In null space, distance becomes meaningless. Something that's 1,000 light-years away in normal space might only be a few steps away in null space." Jake felt his heart starting to race. "Are you saying you figured out faster-than-light travel?" "Better than that," Ryan said, his eyes bright with excitement. "We figured out how to step outside of space entirely. We're not moving faster than light, we're going around the speed limit completely." Kate walked closer to the glowing ring, studying it with her engineer's eye. "How fast are we talking about?" "That's what we need to test," Lisa said. "The theory suggests that a trip to the nearest star system, which would take our fastest ships, over 40,000 years, could be done in a matter of hours using null space." "Hours?" Jake whispered. "Maybe less," Alex added. "Time works differently there too. We sent a probe through last week programmed to stay for what should have been 1 hour. From our perspective, it was gone for 37 seconds. When it came back, its internal clock showed it had been away for exactly 1 hour." Ryan pulled up a video on one of the computer screens. It showed the view from the probe's camera as it entered null space. The normal starfield faded away, replaced by a strange gray void where ghostly outlines of stars and planets could be seen like shadows. "The probe's navigation system worked perfectly," Ryan explained. "It could see where it needed to go, even though everything looked different. The stars were still there, just filtered through this other dimension." Jake stared at the video, his mind racing with possibilities. "This could work on a larger scale, big enough for a spaceship?" "That's what we want to find out," Lisa said. "The math says yes. The energy requirements are actually quite reasonable compared to what we use for our current space missions. No exotic materials, no massive power plants like the aliens probably use." Kate was studying the technical readouts on one of the screens. "This is elegant," she said, sounding impressed. Simple but brilliant. Why didn't anyone think of this before? Because everyone else was thinking inside the box, Alex replied. The alien civilizations have been using the same basic principles for thousands of years. Fold space, punch holes through dimensions, manipulate gravity and time. They're all working within the same framework. But we approached it differently, Ryan added. We weren't trying to bend the rules of space and time. We accidentally found a way to step outside of them completely. Jake looked around at the team, seeing the excitement and hope in their faces. These people had potentially solved humanity's biggest problem: how to travel between the stars in a reasonable amount of time. What do you need from me? He asked. Permission to build a full-scale test, Ryan said. Something big enough to send a person through. We need to prove that null space travel is safe for human beings. And if it works? Jake asked. Kate grinned, and Jake could see the same determination in her eyes that had been there 3 months ago when they received the rejection letter. If it works, we build a ship, a real starship that can travel to other worlds. The aliens dismissed us because our technology seemed primitive, Ryan said. But maybe primitive isn't the same as wrong. Maybe we just think about problems differently than they do. Jake nodded slowly, the implications beginning to sink in. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's chemical rockets and simple fusion reactors, but those same simple technologies had led humanity down a completely different path, one that might be better than anything the advanced civilizations had developed. Do it, he said finally. Build your test. If we can prove this works, we're going to show the galaxy that Earth has more to offer than they thought. Lisa cheered and Alex pumped his fist in the air. Ryan just smiled, the kind of quiet smile that said he had been hoping for this moment for months. Kate walked over to Jake and put her hand on his shoulder, just like she had 3 months ago when the rejection letter arrived. But this time, instead of disappointment in her eyes, there was something that looked like anticipation. You know what this means, don't you? She said quietly. Jake nodded, looking at the glowing ring that might hold the key to humanity's future, among the stars. It means they're going to regret underestimating us. 6 months after Dr. Ryan Carter's breakthrough, the USS Defiance hung in Earth's orbital shipyard like a silver needle pointed at the stars. She wasn't the prettiest ship ever built, with her angular hull and simple design, but she carried humanity's greatest achievement hidden in her engineering section, the null space drive that could change everything. Jake Morrison floated in the ship's bridge, getting used to the feeling of zero gravity as he looked out at the blue marble of Earth below. In just a few hours, he would be captain of humanity's first real starship, leading a crew of 40 into the unknown. The thought both excited and terrified him. Final systems check complete, announced Kate Sullivan from the engineering station. As first officer, she had spent the last month making sure every system on the Defiance worked perfectly. Null space drive is operating within normal parameters. Jake pushed off from the window and floated over to the captain's chair, strapping himself in. Around him, the bridge crew went through their pre-flight routines with quiet efficiency. These were Earth's best pilots, engineers, and scientists, all volunteers who knew they might not come back from this mission. At the navigation station, Emma Clark studied her star charts one more time. The young officer had trained for months to navigate through null space where normal rules didn't apply and stars looked like ghost images. Course plotted for Zentara Prime, she reported. Distance 47 light-years. Estimated travel time using null space, 36 hours. 36 hours. Jake still couldn't believe it. The fastest alien ships would need 3 weeks to make the same journey. And that was with technology they claimed was thousands of years advanced beyond Earth's capabilities. Communications, any word from home? Jake asked. Lieutenant Tony Martinez, the ship's communications officer, shook his head. Nothing new, sir. Command wishes us good luck and safe travels. Jake nodded. They all knew this mission was being kept secret from the rest of the world. If something went wrong, if the Defiance disappeared into null space and never came back, only a few people would ever know what happened. Dr. Ryan Carter floated into the bridge from the science section carrying a tablet computer filled with readings and calculations. Captain, I've been monitoring the null space field generators. Everything looks good for our first long-distance jump. Any last-minute concerns? Jake asked. Ryan shook his head, though Jake could see a hint of nervousness in his eyes. The theory is solid, and all our tests have been successful. But this is the first time we're taking a ship this size through null space for such a long distance. At the pilot's station, Commander Steve Hamilton ran through his final checks. Steve had been the test pilot for the first null space experiments, and he was the only person aboard who had actually experienced what it felt like to exist between dimensions. "Ready when you are, Captain," Steve announced. Jake took a deep breath and opened the ship-wide communication channel. "Attention all. Hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we will make history as the first human crew to travel to another star system. Our mission is simple: show the Galactic Council that Earth deserves a place among the stars." He paused, thinking about the rejection letter that had started all of this. The aliens dismissed us as primitive, but we're about to prove that sometimes a new way of thinking is better than an old way of doing things. All hands prepare for null space transition. Around the ship, crew members strapped themselves into their seats and secured any loose equipment. The null space transition was supposed to be smooth, but no one knew for sure what to expect on such a long journey. "Emma, engage the null space drive," Jake ordered. Emma's fingers danced across her control panel, and the ship began to hum with a low, vibrating sound. Outside the windows, the stars began to fade, becoming dim and ghostly. Earth itself became a pale shadow, still visible but somehow less real than before. "Transition to null space complete," Emma announced. "We are now traveling outside normal space-time." Jake stared out the window in amazement. The view was exactly like Dr. Carter had described from the probe videos, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. Everything looked like it was made of gray smoke and shadows. Earth was still there, but it seemed far away and unimportant. The stars formed strange patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Navigation, how are we doing?" Jake asked. Emma consulted her instruments, which had been specially modified to work in null space. "On course, Captain. The gravitational signatures of the Zentara system are clear on our sensors. At current speed, we should arrive in 34 hours. "Faster than predicted," Kate observed. "The null space currents must be favorable," as the hours passed. The crew settled into a routine. The ship felt strange in null space. Sounds seemed muffled, and everyone reported feeling slightly dizzy until they got used to it. But the Defiance held together perfectly, her hull intact and her systems running smoothly. Ryan spent most of his time taking readings and measurements, documenting everything about their journey through null space. "This is incredible," he told Jake during one of his regular reports. "The energy efficiency is even better than we calculated. We're using less power to travel 47 light years than we would normally use to reach Mars." On the second day of their journey, Tony picked up alien communications from the Zentara system. The messages were in various alien languages, but the translation computers could handle most of them. "Captain, you should hear this," Tony said, putting the alien communications on the bridge speakers. The first voice belonged to a Velthari diplomat, speaking in those musical crystal tones that the translation system turned into words. The primitive humans from Sol 3 were properly rejected as expected. Their chemical rocket technology proves they are not ready for civilized contact. A Krek's voice buzzed in response. "Perhaps in a few thousand years they will develop something less embarrassing. Their fusion technology is barely functional." Jake felt his jaw tighten as he listened to the aliens casually dismissing his entire species. Kate floated over to his chair and put a hand on his shoulder. "Easy, Captain," she said quietly. "In a few hours they're going to get the surprise of their lives." More alien voices joined the conversation, all of them talking about Earth like it was some backward planet full of children playing with dangerous toys. They discussed human technology with the kind of amused condescension that made Jake's blood boil. "Sir," Emma called from her station, "I'm detecting the edge of the Zentara system. We're almost there." Jake activated the ship-wide communication system again. "All hands prepare for transition back to normal space. In a few minutes, we're going to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of." The null space drive powered down, and slowly the ghostly gray void outside began to fade. Real stars appeared, bright and clear. A brilliant orange sun grew brighter ahead of them, and Jake could see the massive space station that was the Galactic Council headquarters. Transition complete, Emma announced. We are now in normal space, approximately 1 million kilometers from the Council station. Jake smiled as he looked at the alien station through the bridge windows. Somewhere inside that structure, the same beings who had rejected Earth's application were going about their daily business, completely unaware that a human ship had just traveled faster than any of their vessels could manage. Tony, open a communication channel to the station, Jake ordered. Channel open, sir. Jake straightened in his captain's chair and spoke clearly into the communicator. Zentara Prime Control. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel, USS Defiance, requesting immediate audience with the Galactic Council for urgent technological demonstration. There was a long pause before a confused alien voice responded. Earth vessel? This must be some mistake. There are no human ships scheduled to arrive for several centuries. Jake grinned and looked around at his crew, seeing the same satisfaction in their faces that he felt in his heart. No mistake, Control, we made good time. The silence from Zentara Prime Control stretched on for what felt like forever. Jake Morrison could almost picture the confusion in the station's traffic control center as alien operators tried to figure out how a human ship had appeared in their System 2, full days ahead of schedule. Finally, a different voice came through the communicator, this one speaking in the crystal tones of a Velthari. Human vessel, please state your method of arrival. Our sensors show no quantum displacement signatures, no dimensional phase residue, and no temporal distortion fields. Jake looked at Kate, who was grinning from ear to ear. Tell them the truth, Captain, she said. Zentara Control, we used a faster-than-light drive system developed by Earth. Jake replied calmly. We request permission to dock and address the Galactic Council regarding our previous membership application. Another long pause. Then a flood of alien voices filled the communication channel, all talking at once in different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up, but Jake caught phrases like impossible, sensor malfunction, and primitive species cannot achieve such speeds. Tony Martinez looked up from his communication station, shaking his head in amazement. Sir, I'm getting dozens of incoming signals from ships throughout the system. Everyone wants to know how we got here so fast. Emma Clark studied her navigation displays, watching as alien vessels began changing course to get a closer look at the human ship. Captain, we've got company. 12 ships approaching from different directions. They're keeping their distance, but they're definitely curious. Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the alien vessels. They were beautiful ships, each one designed with flowing curves and exotic materials that seemed to shift and change in the light. Compared to them, the USS Defiance looked like a simple tool made of basic metal and circuits. Sir, Dr. Ryan, Carter said, floating over from his science station with a tablet full of sensor readings. I'm detecting active scans from multiple sources. They're trying to figure out what kind of drive system we're using. The main communication channel crackled to life again, and this time the voice belonged to Commander Zekth of the Krex. Jake recognized the mechanical buzz from the recorded council sessions they had intercepted during their journey. Human, vessel, you will submit to immediate inspection. No species with your level of technology should be capable of faster-than-light travel. You must have stolen alien technology or received assistance from an advanced civilization. Jake felt his temper rising, but he kept his voice calm and professional. Commander Zeketh, I can assure you that our drive system was developed entirely by human scientists using human technology. We're happy to demonstrate its capabilities to the Council. Impossible, buzzed the Krex commander. Your species barely understands fusion power. You cannot have developed anything superior to quantum displacement drives that have existed for millennia. Kate activated her own communication station and spoke directly to the alien ships. Commander, with respect, maybe your ancient technology isn't as advanced as you think it is. The reaction was immediate. Alien voices filled the communication channels, some angry, others confused, all of them demanding explanations. Jake could hear the musical tones of the Velthari, mixing with the mechanical buzzing of the Krex and the flowing sounds of the Nomari, All vessels, stand down, came a new voice, this one carrying the authority of someone in charge. This is Counselor Veltar of the Velthari. Human vessel, you are granted permission to dock at Council Station Alpha. A full inspection team will meet you there. Thank you, Counselor, Jake replied. We look forward to showing you what human engineering can accomplish. As the USS Defiance approached the massive Council Station, Jake marveled at its size and complexity. The structure was easily 50 times larger than anything humans had ever built in space, with docking arms that could accommodate hundreds of ships at once. Alien vessels came and went like busy insects, each one more advanced-looking than Earth's best technology. But none of them had traveled as far or as fast as the simple human ship now requesting permission to dock. The docking procedure took an hour, with alien controllers carefully guiding the Defiance to a berth normally reserved for visiting dignitaries. Jake could see crowds of aliens gathering at the observation windows, all trying to get a look at the primitive species that had somehow achieved the impossible. Once the ship was secure, Jake selected a small team to accompany him to the council chambers. Kate would come as his first officer, Dr. Carter would explain the science, and Tony would handle communications. The rest of the crew would remain on the ship, ready to demonstrate the null space drive if needed. The inside of the council station was even more impressive than the outside. Corridors curved and twisted in impossible directions, with gravity fields that allowed beings to walk on walls and ceilings. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy fields that helped different species breathe and communicate. Alien beings stopped to stare as the human delegation walked through the station. Jake heard whispered conversations in dozens of languages, all expressing amazement that such primitive-looking creatures had managed to travel so far so fast. The council chamber was exactly as Jake had seen it in the intercepted communications, a vast circular room with a floating table surrounded by seats for representatives from dozens of different worlds. Today, however, the chamber was packed with curious aliens who had come to see the humans who claimed to have superior technology. Counselor Veltar stood at the speaking platform, his crystal body catching and reflecting the room's soft light. Beings of the council, he announced, we gather today to address an unprecedented situation. The humans of Sol 3, whose membership, application we rejected 3 months ago, have arrived at our station using unknown faster-than-light technology. A wave of sounds filled the chamber, clicks, buzzes, musical tones, and other noises that represented different species expressing amazement and disbelief. Commander Zekth rose from his seat, his 6 legs carrying him to the center of the chamber. Counselors, this is clearly some kind of deception. These primitives cannot have developed technology superior to our own. I demand a full inspection of their vessel to discover what alien technology they have stolen. Jake stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. Counselors, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Defiance. We have traveled 47 light years in 36 hours using a drive system developed entirely by human scientists. The chamber erupted in noise as aliens expressed their disbelief in dozens of different ways. Dr. Carter moved to Jake's side, holding up his tablet computer. If I may explain, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation. Systems. Our null space drive doesn't work like your quantum displacement technology or dimensional phase systems. Instead of folding space or punching holes through dimensions, we step outside of space-time entirely. He activated a holographic display that showed the principles behind null space travel. The aliens leaned forward, studying the images with intense curiosity. You see, Ryan continued, while your civilizations focused on manipulating space and time, we found a way to exist between them. In null space, distance becomes meaningless. We can travel from one star to another in hours instead of weeks. Counselor Talara of the Namari floated forward in her biosuit, her voice filled with wonder. The mathematics are elegant, simple, but brilliant. Why did none of our scientists consider this approach? Because you were thinking inside the framework of existing technology, Kate replied. Sometimes the best solutions come from approaching problems with fresh eyes. Commander Zekth's mechanical voice buzzed with frustration. Even if this is true, it proves nothing. One lucky discovery does not make a species worthy of council membership. Jake smiled, remembering the plan they had discussed during the journey. Commander, would you like us to prove our technology works? We could take a council inspection team on a short journey, say to the nearby Kelran system and back. Your fastest ships would need 6 days for that round trip. We can do it in 8 hours. The chamber fell silent. The Kelran system was 3 light years away, a standard test distance that council ships used for training missions. Veltar's crystal body flashed brighter as he considered the challenge. You would do this? Take council representatives on your vessel? Gladly, Jake replied. We have nothing to hide. The demonstration flight launched 2 hours later, with a dozen alien representatives aboard the USS Defiance. Jake watched their faces as the ship entered null space, seeing their expressions change from skepticism to amazement as the stars faded into ghostly shadows. The round trip to Kelran took exactly 7 hours and 43 minutes. When they returned to the council station, the alien representatives were talking excitedly among themselves in their various languages. The implications were staggering. Humanity's null space technology wasn't just faster than existing drives. It was more efficient, used less energy, and required no rare materials. Back in the council chamber, Veltar addressed the assembled delegates. The demonstration has been verified. Human null space technology represents a fundamental breakthrough in faster-than-light travel. Commander Zeketh's mechanical voice was much quieter now. The applications are extensive. Communication across galactic distances, rapid evacuation of populations, exploration of previously unreachable regions. Jake stood before the council one final time. 3 months ago, you rejected Earth's application for membership because our technology seemed primitive, but sometimes thinking differently leads to better solutions than following the same old paths. The vote for human membership was unanimous. As Jake looked out at the chamber full of alien beings who now regarded humanity with respect instead of dismissal, he thought about how far they had come. The species that had been laughed at for using chemical rockets was now being asked to share technology that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Kate joined him at the observation window, as more human ships equipped with null space drives began arriving at the council station. Earth wasn't joining the galactic community as a junior member begging for acceptance. They were entering as equals, bringing gifts that would benefit everyone. Not bad for a bunch of primitives, Kate said with a grin. Jake nodded, watching, as alien diplomats lined up to establish trade and research agreements with the human delegation. Sometimes being underestimated is exactly the motivation you need to prove everyone wrong. Outside the station, the stars that had once seemed impossibly distant now felt within reach. Humanity had found its place among them, not by copying what others had done, but by daring to think of something completely new.